Welcome back. A recent survey shows that only 1 in 3 American adults has an estate plan. About 20% of those people have not updated their plan in the last 5 years. And get this, women are way more likely than men to not have an estate plan.
Interesting. So what happens if you don't have an estate plan? Is it a big deal if you die without one of those plans in place? Well, Dan Krause is an attorney and founder of Krause Estate Planning and Elder Law Center, and he's got some answers, right, Dan?
I do have some answers.
We like that. So in general, before we kind of get into some of those statistics or ideas or thoughts, what is estate planning? What's the difference of that versus other things?
Well, estate planning can be a lot of things, and I really loved the previous segment with Patty because the legacy planning and to pass on your stories is a part of the estate planning that we don't often talk about. But what my job is to help people with financial estate planning or legal estate planning. And what that is it's just a plan that you put together that puts the ducks in a row, as we say, so that if you become incapacitated, or like all of us will do eventually one day, but we don't want to think about it, we're going to die. And things have to happen before, after death or incapacity, and if we're not prepared for it, our families can suffer. So estate planning is really just to get your ducks in a row so that you don't leave a mess when something happens.
Yeah.
The statistics are shocking about how many people don't do an estate plan, but my guess is that it has a lot to do with the kind of thinking that you have to do in order to put a plan together. You have to think about who you want to leave things to, medical decisions sometimes about who's going to be in charge if you're incapacitated. And so it's confronting a lot of things that don't seem that happy.
It's kicking monsters in the closet sometimes. For a lot of people, some of my clients really have a hard time thinking about and planning for that. There's a lot of superstition that goes into it, but I want to give people some peace of mind because the superstition is that, well, if I plan for death, then it's going to happen.
Oh, gosh.
But the reality is, if you
it's going to happen.
Well, it's going to happen. But if you take the umbrella, it's not going to rain. So if you do your estate plan, your death is going to be put off for a long time.
I like that.
Good thinking.
Good stuff. Okay, so when it happens, when it comes to the estate plan, what happens if you don't have one? And like Molly said, a lot of women are less likely to have one than men.
Well, it depends on what your family is, how long you live, and whether you become incapacitated or not. But generally, if you don't have a plan, the courts are going to get involved. If you become incapacitated during your lifetime and you don't have an estate plan, including powers of attorney, then the courts are going to be involved with deciding who's going to take care of you, who's going to make decisions for you. Whereas if you had an estate plan, you get to decide, and there's no court involvement. Same thing after death. If you have an estate plan, if you do it in a certain way, then your family can avoid the courts after your death. But if
that family fighting.
Exactly.
Sometimes you end up in court anyway because people who plan with a will, the will is brought into court and then the family follows the will through the court system. So probate is part of a person's estate.
What is probate? Is that just court for estates?
Exactly. A probate court is a section of the court system that deals with things after people die, but it also deals with guardianship. So if people become incapacitated, that all goes through the probate court. And it's stuff that you can avoid or you can plan for so it goes like you want it to go instead of like maybe somebody in your family wants it to go that it's not the same as what you would want.
What is the so-called death tax?
So death taxes is the boogeyman that a lot of people talk about, that if you die, the government's going to take everything and your kids won't get anything. It's not so much of a boogeyman as it used to be. The death tax doesn't kick in Wisconsin until you have at least $13.61 million.
Oh, we're clear.
I think most 99.7% of everybody doesn't have to worry about that. However, the estate tax exemption is going to go down in 2026 to about 7 million. We don't know exactly because it depends on inflation, but it's going to cut in just about half. Now that's going to hit more people, but still only less than 1% is going to have to worry about an estate tax. So that's the death tax. Now, in other states, there may be more estate tax than there is in Wisconsin. We're lucky we only deal with the federal estate tax. The state does not have a death tax, as they say.
Seems so important to have an attorney involved in this so that you do it right, so you can avoid all of those things. I mean, if you're going to do the work of trying to make those decisions and have things lined up, you want to have an attorney involved. I also wonder, before you talk about the importance of that, is it actually more reasonable in terms of the cost of doing estate planning than maybe people think?
Well, it's the cost of anything is what you get out of it. And if it doesn't make sense for you, you should not spend it. That's the opportunity cost. It does cost money to hire an attorney to help with an estate plan, but when you think about what the troubles are that your family might go through afterwards, or many times estate planning can help save several times what it costs to do estate planning, because if you've properly planned for taxes, capital gains taxes, if you properly plan for if you should go into a nursing home, these things can save multiples and multiple times what it does cost to do estate planning. So that's things to keep in mind. And a lot of people are concerned with, what am I going to leave? What kind of a mess am I going to leave for my kids?
Clean it up for them.
Clean it up for them, consolidate, do your legal documents, and everything will be better than it would be otherwise. I mean, it's always hard to lose.